All right, so let's go ahead and jump in and play around a little bit with this reading data stuff. Okay, so we have this little file we've been messing around with here called io.txt, and we have this file io.py. Now, what I've written into there is I love butterflies. Let's go ahead and write some more stuff in there. Let's write I love cats, and let's run that, and let's write I love dogs, and let's run that. Let's make sure that we have those in there. And actually we haven't written, it's because we're in write mode. Okay, so you see I just overwrote those. I overwrote I love butterflies, I love cats, I love dogs with I love dogs. Okay, so we got to make sure we go back to append, and let's do that again. So I love dogs, I love cats. We're going to run that. Now that we're in append, we're going to do I love horses, and we're going to write that in as well. Okay, so let's take a look at our file here. I love dogs, I love cats, I love horses, okay? So we opened io.txt, we put it into append mode, we go ahead and save that to F, and then we use f.write, I love horses, with a new line at the end. I love cats, I love dogs, I love horses. And then for every open, we have a close. Now, right now, the process that we have is just writing. So let's play around now with some of these read options. So if we come back here and look, we have the read method. Okay, so let's go over here and just mess around with file.read. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do f.read, and we're just going to see what happens. Now, I want you to take a stab at it. What do you think the output is going to be? Okay, take a couple seconds there, think about it. If you need to hit pause, and here we go. It's not readable. Oh, that's right. We understand why it's not readable, right? Because it's not in the write mode. All right, so let's try this again. Let's open it in read mode, and let's see what happens. Something still hasn't happened. I didn't get any errors, but now what's the issue? Okay, I want you to take a guess and think about it. Okay, let's go over here. We know that the read method reads the entire file, and then it returns a string, correct? Okay, so this right here is returning a string. So what are we doing with that string? Are we doing anything with that string? We are not doing anything with that string. So what we can do is we can just throw that directly into a print statement, right? All right, so f.read is going to return a string. We're going to push that string into the print statement. The print statement is then going to print it to the console. Let's go ahead and look, see, and look at that. Very good, very good. We have I love dogs, I love cats, I love horses. You can see it all down here. Okay, so I opened it up in read mode. I used the I saved it into a file object called F. I used the print function to print out the string that is returned from the f.read function. Now, I can also save that as contents, right? Okay, so I've saved that as a string now, and I can go ahead and just print contents, okay? So it should be the same thing, right? So there we go. I love dogs, I love cats, I love horses. Okay, so I can save that into contents, and then I can mess around with that, right? So we know how to string concatenate, right? So I can say contents equal, well, we can just do plus equals, because we're just going to concatenate to the end of it, and we're going to add I love butterflies. Oops, did I spell that? Butterfiles. All right, I love butterflies. There we go. And let's put a new line on the end of that. Boom. Okay, so let's go ahead and print this and see if we get I love butterflies in the console. There we go. I have butterflies in the console. But at the same time, I want you to think about this. So I've opened io.txt. I've saved it into a string. I've modified the string, and I'm printing the string. Do you think the file changed? What is the way that we can actually change the file? The write function. Correct. All right, we could use the write function. So when I print this out, it's not going to build up I love butterflies. It's just going to print the same thing over and over and over and over again. Now, what I could do is I could read it in, and then I could write that new thing back out if I wanted to, right? So I'd have to open it in a writable mode. So I could actually just take this. Whoops. Why don't we just type it again? F equals open io.txt, and then we can write that in append, right? And then I can actually do f.write, and then I can write the new contents in, okay? And actually, we could do that in write, because that means it's going to add the entire string back to it. If we did it in append, we would have I love cats, I love dogs, I love cats, I love horses, And then it would say, I love dogs, I love cats, I love horses, I love butterflies. Okay, we just want to go ahead and add I love butterflies so we can sort of emulate this idea of an append using the write mode. So we can write that. Now for every open, we need a close. And there we go. Let's run it. And there we go. Okay, so I love butterflies. Now if we run it again, we should have an extra line of I love butterflies. I love butterflies, I love butterflies, right? So we're just building that up inside of there. When we could just use the append to do the same thing, but there you go. There is the f.read. It returns the entire content of the text file into a string, and then you can mess around with that text file, and then you can write that text file if you would like to. Okay, so that's the read function. So let's go ahead and pull this back down. All right, so far we just have content saved in f.read. So let's go ahead and mess around with the read line function. Now the read line method is the file object method that reads a line from the file. Okay, the line is denoted by the /n. Okay, so if it's not a /n, then it's not a line, right? So the way that we could call it a delimiter, the way that it determines if there is a new line is the /n. Okay, now because this has a /n here, here on at the end of every single line, it'll read these lines really, really nicely. So let's go ahead and see what happens if we just do the read line at this point. So let's go ahead and print the contents and see what happens. So let's go ahead and run it. I love dogs. Okay, so let's think about this. It only printed the first line. Is that correct? Is that the way it's supposed to be working? Think about that. Yes, because it reads one line at a time. So the read position after this particular line, line 3, is now sitting at the beginning of of line 2. Okay, and then it'll be line 3, line 4, line 5 every time we call that read line. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this one more time. We'll enclose it just in a print statement to make it easier on ourselves. f.readLine. Okay, whoops, we want read line. There we go. Now we should see the second line print out, right? There we go. I love cats. Now if I run that again, I should see the next line. And then the next line, right? Given that we have lines. All right. And then I could do that again and again and again and again. All right. Let's see how many times we can do it before something breaks. Okay. We're still doing pretty good, right? You think something's going to break? Well, let's just take our guesses. What do you think is going to happen? All right. Let's run it. Nothing happened, right? It's gotten to the end. So remember we talked about the read position. The read position got to the end of the file, and now the next line, so read line is just going to return an empty line is what it's going to be. So it's going to return an empty line. So it is giving us space here at the bottom, if you'll notice. It's just empty. There's nothing there. Okay, so you could just read line until you're, blue in the face, right? But this isn't a very good way to do it. I mean, we can read the line over and over and over again, but it's not really the best to do repeated lines, right? Because we don't like to see a bunch of repeated lines because that means we could have a function or we could have some sort of a thing, maybe a loop structure that can help us to eliminate all of these sorts of things. And we will talk about that here shortly. All right, so we have the read method. Again, the file object reads the entire file into the memory, returns it as a string. You can mess around with that string, and then if you want to do anything with that, you have to write the entire string back to the function. Then we have read line, which means you can grab a line, you can look at it, you can analyze it, and then you can grab the next line, the next line, the next line, the next line. Okay, so that's sort of how that works. Now, again, concatenating a new line, we already concatenated that off of there. We can also do the rstrip method, and if you're going to do the rstrip method, you could actually just take this f.read line, and it's returning a string, right? So we can actually use rstrip at this point, and we could see what that does. So let's just throw it in as is and see what happens. All right. So at this point, it gets rid of that extra new line. Now the console itself is going to go ahead and add that in there for it, or the print function itself is going to add that in for us. So the print function is adding a new line. rstrip is getting rid of that extra new line. Okay, so you see how there's a new line and then another new line and then a new line, and now there's not another new line. It's just I love horses. It's because rstrip pulled that /n out of there. Now if I were to do rstrip for all of these, you would see it a lot nicer. It wouldn't have so many gaps in it. See if I can copy this, and let's paste it a few times, and you'll see that everything is nice and condensed now. Now you'll see as I add, it's just going to return a bunch of empty spots, empty spaces down here. Okay, see how I now have just empty spaces? Okay, because there's really nothing else there. It's reading a nothing on the next line. Okay, so that's what that rstrip is. You always have to apply the rstrip to a string, and we know that readline returns a string. We also know that read returns a string, so you could apply rstrip to read as well. It wouldn't be as useful because there's not a new line always at the end of a file. Okay, all right, so there's the read functionality and the rstrip and the concatenation. And again, we've talked about data, appending data. We've talked about writing data, how writing overwrites it, appending adds to the end of it. Okay, so next video, we're going to go ahead and jump in and talk about writing and reading numeric data. So go ahead and maybe go into your PyCharm, mess around with all this kind of stuff, see if you can get underneath it and get it figured out and figure out what's going on with all this kind of stuff, and then I'll see you in the next video.